Hello, hello. Today I'm working on the Live Captions app and I need your help. Music too loud? So I need your help. I'm going to be working on the Live Captions app live on stream and testing while I'm on stream. Samham says, when you release a new app, you didn't add paywall for the first time. Yeah, most of my consumer apps don't have a paywall. I do that for a bit of viral growth. But if the app's going to cost me money in terms of tokens for chat GPT or whatever, then I'll reconsider that. It depends on the app. Mostly I don't add a paywall on the first release. I want to have some viral growth. With this app I'm building, there will be a component where there's a paywall or an upgrade. I want to have some viral growth, so most of the functionality is going to be for free. And then I will have an option where you can remove a watermark, and that's going to be the paywall part. But it really depends on the app, and most of the consumer apps that I've built, I release with no paywall up front, primarily just to test. My theory is if I can't get people using the app for free, how am I going to get people paying for it? So in the past, I've released a quick app, put it onto the App Store, and see if it gets any momentum. It's worked for me. Can you hear me okay? Is the music the right level? Can't quite tell. Let's see. Gonna mute it for a second. Good. Thanks for that, Richard. So yeah, I'm building my Live Captions app. It's sort of a spin-off of another spin-off. And I just want to have a quick win. This is just something that I want to work on, have a bit of fun building, something that I can create on stream and test on stream. So it's kind of a win-win. I tested it on my stream yesterday and it was really hurting the CPU. Things were quite slow. Now I've got it running a bit better, like it's not as CPU intensive, but that's because I'm not rendering frames all the time. I used to have a split Liam asks, have I thought about using a split keyboard? Used to have a split keyboard many years ago, not actually a split keyboard, but one of those Microsoft ones that had the angles on the sides. It was still connected, but it was side by side, and I did like it. But I've tried to get a keyboard now that emulates as close as possible to the MacBook Pro keyboard, so that my muscle memory doesn't change when I have done a split keyboard. So when I have done a split keyboard, then when I jump onto the laptop, my muscle memory isn't there. So I try to have consistency between this keyboard and the MacBook, so when I jump onto it. Adam asks, what LLM model am I using? No LLM model at the moment running on this. This is just the text-to-speech API from SwiftUI. And then there's some possibility of adding Whisper and things like that in the future to have a bit more, a bit better detection. Richard, yes, using Apple Speech Recognizer. Like text-to-speech. This song's a bit too trancey for me. So I want to put music on that motivates me. There's so many streams that do the lo-fi music, and I can't code with lo-fi. It bores me, and I'm slower when I'm coding. I've got to time out that subtitle. I've tried to add some animations to the subtitles, and things are already moving about too much on the screen when I'm talking, so the animations were just not working properly. So I've brought it back down to basics, and it's just text. But someone on my stream yesterday recommended it might be cool to have like a speech bubble that pops up or something like that. So I'm gonna see if that effect works well. The whole idea of this app is to add some sort of dynamic functionality to captions, so they're not as boring. Adam says, cool feature with an LLM would be replacing some of the words with emojis. That's a good idea. With the framework that I've already created with the captions app, I've got the ability to add, pull in GIF from, what is it, Giphy? And in doing so, what I'd like to do in this app, if I get enough time, I'm just building this till the end of the month. If I don't have enough time, it's a nice to have feature, but it'd be cool if I could use an LLM to detect what GIF should be displaying on screen, or even just preset what the GIFs would be. So if this is a test. So this is the app, and I can add in there scenes desk cam. Hang on a minute, let me remove that window. So I can add like animations in there. And this is the framework that's powering the live captions. So like I can add a explosion in there, and then next time I press play, this is a test, I can add explosions in there. So the LLM could be used to automatically detect what animations are going to be displayed on screen to add some sort of dynamic, bit more dynamic functionality to it. Small steps. Got to get this working first. With the dynamicness of, I thought I could just copy across the dynamic functionality that happens with a pre-rendered video, but it turns out like text is updating on screen, so it's already dynamic enough, and when animation happens with the text updating, it's really hard to follow. So my theory didn't work. So now someone came up with the idea of speech bubbles, and I think that's a nice idea. Yeah, exactly. So you can set like presets. Is there a Rickroll on Giphy? Rickroll. Yeah, so it could like Rickroll you. This is a test. So there can be a bit of fun with it. But first steps is getting it to actually work properly. At the moment, I've got it so it automatically detects a delay. So if I stop talking for a couple of seconds and then restart, it knows to start a new sentence. And then I think if I keep talking, I don't think it's going to run off the edge. I've made it so it doesn't run off the edge. I'm going to keep talking to see if it does run off the edge. Yeah, so it's got a cap on how many words I'm doing. But I'm wondering if I can have, like, firstly, I want to try having the current thing being said, and then a semi-transparent previous line, semi-transparent previous line, and then it just sort of scrolls down. I wonder if that would work. Might change it from green if I'm going to do that. Now I've set it to black. And then I want to have like just a transparent, that'll happen. It's a bit hacked together, this code, because I've just, basically this is a prototype, and now I've got to turn it into a minimal viable product. Thanks for dropping in, Adam. Yeah, and see how it goes. So I've got, the old way I was doing it was to actually render the frame with the animation in there. So I've replaced that and I've still got the code in there. ABEC, more live streams. I think I try to do it. I was trying to do it as many times as I could. So any time that I sit down to code now, I'm really trying to just get stuck to it on a stream. And then especially doing something where I can test code on stream works well. But life gets in the way, and just juggling kids and emergencies and all of the things that happen, all the drama that happens in real life. So I'm hoping what this does now, I'm hoping this adds each one, but it's not. Oh, maybe it is. No, it's not. Ah, so it's, so if I say something and then stop, it's adding it to the new line. Because I'm actually clearing it in my recognizer, word recognizer. Let's see if this works. Now it should add a second line, should add a third line, should add a fourth line. And I don't need to have, oh, that went weird. What's happening there? So the speech to text function has like a buffer. So I'm trying to add things to the buffer and then update the words in the buffer as they come through. And I'm checking the index against the words, and then it's just making a mess of it. It's going back to previous indexes. By that logic, this will start in the first sentence. Yeah. Biological. No, by that logic. Set to English US. Set it to English Australia. So I got to think of a way to get this working the way I want it to work. Kind of have to have a buffer that keeps it. So keep the existing code. Did my keyboard stop? Why would my keyboard have just stopped? This one doesn't. The cable is only there for charging. Maybe it was running a bit low on charge. So it's the funny thing about this Logitech keyboard is the USB is only for charging. It doesn't actually sync up with the MacBook. But it must have been running a bit low on battery. Alright, back to it. So what I want to do is create a running buffer of all of the subtitle groups that I've created. So group subtitles at the moment, I'm just setting it as that. So I'm grouping the subtitles from the buffer that comes in to the text to speech, speech to text. Now what I want to do is just add the buffer. In doing so, Ali G, hello. Ali G, I watched all your movies. I mean, movies from years ago, the Ali G movies. One thing I've recently done is I've replaced all of the USB ports with these little magnetic chargers. So I'm really liking them. Can't pull it out of the mouse. I can probably pull it out of the keyboard. So it's like these little magnetic things. Oh, I lost it. And they go into the USB port. And you put one in like the iPhone, one in keyboards. And then no matter what adapter you have, this little attachment just clicks in. And the coolest thing is, like, if I want to charge the mouse, I just go like this, and it just hooks in. So I really like that. So I've stolen that from the camera that's actually up here at the moment. Okay. It is weird that it's continuing to show the buffer. Ali G says, haha, me too. Watched my own movies. I am the real Ali G. I'm sure Sacha Baron Cohen loves coding streams. Spends his day on coding streams. Yeah, as I'm previewing it, so as I'm launching it, but there's a bug in it at the moment, so I'm just, when I start again, so what I want to do is have a running list of all of the previous captions that I've said, and then it should automatically add a new line. So I've got it working okay, adding new lines. And then, but it's currently overriding the current one, so it's not acting the way that it should. Well, the way I'm intending. If I keep running and keep talking, it works fine, because this is the buffer of the text-to-speech. But the second I stop, and then re-go, it's replacing the first line again, which is not the ideal behavior. Actually, I think what I could do is in this part here, when I'm clearing the timestamps, the word timestamps, I could save a running log, a buffer of what was previously in there, and that might work. Let's see. I haven't seen the extensions with iOS, with Xcode. Ali G asks, do you mind using Cursor IDE? There is extensions for iOS dev. And I've used Cursor, well actually I think I used Copilot. So I don't actually think I've used Cursor. And Copilot threw me out of the flow state, so it kept recommending stuff, and I was sort of felt like I was fighting with the code. But this was back in the GPT 3.5 4.0 days, so I don't think it was as intuitive. But I didn't know you could do it with Xcode. I don't know if you can do it with Xcode. Okay, so hopefully now what I do is return to what it was doing, was not replacing the first line. Yes. Ali G says you can add Cursor to Xcode. I'd be interested to try it out. I tried Ali G says that the Ali G Xcode 16 has its own AI assistant. And I did try it, and I immediately turned it off after a few days. It was running slow. It wasn't very good at recommending. Ali G's just sent me a Medium article. How'd you send it? Eduardo, what website do you recommend to learn to code? What's your experience? How far along the coding journey are you? People you may know, Ali G. I've switched to Cursor entirely for iOS development. Blog is full of everything you need. So you're using like VS Code, so it's not running in Xcode. So how do you go about I mean, you have to switch to Xcode to compile, I'm assuming. Okay. And you reckon it works well? Have you did you try Copilot? To compile, you should switch back to Xcode. My flow, the way that I work, I sort of write, build, write, build, write, build. And I guess that's the thing, it's these tools always throw me out of the flow that I have, so I have this muscle memory, and then trying to get stuck in, like, trying to change that. Copper Guild likes Melon Playground, subscribe. Thank you for the subscription. I'll show you what my workflow is. Let me just... This is my workflow. And it's not as efficient, I guess. But I go to Claude when I do need help. Fix this. And then I paste it in, which is not ideal, but and then I test it, then I run it, see if it works. And it does pull me out of the flow, but it's not interrupting me. If I'm deep in the work and deep in the flow, it's not interrupting me. And now this should start a new line. No, it's not starting a new line. It's overriding the previous lines again. Will this override it? And then add a new line? Does this overwrite the first line? What about this one? So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Now what I want to do is add the archive in there as well. Called it previous. And I want the index because I want to fade it away. So what this should do now is keep a backlog. And this one. And a new line. That was weird. Another line. Another line. Okay, that seems to work. And then progressively I want those previous ones to fade away. Hey, it's truncated the sentence. Because I'm running off the page now, so it's trying to do its best to conserve space. So we don't need to worry too much about that. All subtitles. maybe call it latest subtitles. So this will group previous subtitles and latest subtitles. And then I don't have to worry about compile error. And then I don't have to worry about, I have to return subtitles. And then I don't have to worry about doubling up on code. That should have been a long enough pause. And now I want to only grab the last 5 lines. Only return the last 5 lines. I didn't have the captions on, I had the screen instead of that other view. No. I mean, it should only return the latest. No, not using Xcode in light mode. Umesh. So now this returns, I go back to that screen so it has the subtitles on the screen. So now this return only the last 5 lines. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it works. Yep, it works. We're only returning 5 lines now. And then I can progressively make it get more like transparent. So if the index is 0, 1.0 minus, so if you go 5 divided by 5 is 1, 2 divided by 5 is 4. So it should fade away. I'm not quite sure if that code will work. Let's see if it works. The next line should be less, and it's not. There's no opacity. No obesity. There's no opacity, Mr. Subtitles. No, there's no obesity. This is where the LLM will come in handy. I think, like using a framework like Whisper will be a bit better in context, and then also in the future, if there's 2 people talking, being able to differentiate roles of people talking. But at the moment, I'm just focused on getting it working. Umesh says, please check out my short stories, novels, and books. Is that for like SEO, ASO type stuff, or you want me to have a look at it? Tell me about it, because I'm in just coding at the moment. So let me know what's the app. Short stories, I assume it's an app about like AI that generates and creates short stories. Maybe. So if it's 1.0, 1.0 less, that should, why is that not working? I would assume that would work. The reason why I was truncating is because I've put it into a H stack and I put a spacer at the end. Will this add opacity? I don't want it to add obesity. So there's no opacity being added. I want the opacity to drop off as the index decreases. So 0 index equals so I had my maths wrong. That's the maths I should use. Let's see if that doesn't work. CG float. Sometimes Swift UI causes some headaches. Why am I not using constants but using magic numbers? What's magic numbers? Christopher, just tuning in on the second monitor while you work. Awesome. What are you working on, Christopher? Ali G, for instance, 50, 0.1, etc. You should define constant values for it instead of using these numbers, in my opinion. But they're dynamic, so they're being updated based on the index. How would they be a constant? You're referring to the opacity and then calculating it? Christopher's working on his mobile game. Seal. Ah, that popped up yesterday, didn't it? Ah. So Ali G says, for example, the 50 should be setting that as a constant. Well, that will probably that's something that's going to be managed in the future. At the moment, I'm just working on getting it to actually show on screen. So 50 is just an arbitrary number, but that will be something that's updated. You'll be able to set the font size dynamically, so it will be set elsewhere. So my objective at the moment is turning it from the prototype to a minimal viable product. Yeah, no, it's a fair question, Ali G. That's a better way of doing it. I've just copied it over from Claude. This is a test. The next line should be somewhat transparent, and the next line should be even less transparent. Nice. That's working as I expected, but reversed, because Claude has added reversed in there. We don't want it to be reversed, because I want the... Maybe I do. What would work better? When I'm talking, that makes more sense where it sort of fades away, because it's like when you're reading a book. And the next sentence, and then the next sentence. And I don't think I need to go 5 deep, probably go 3 deep. Wonder if that works. Oh. I don't know what happened there. So you get a context of the current thing being said, and then the last thing fading away. It does do a weird thing sometimes, which probably needs to be worked on. But now I can reduce the size of the text being said and people can still follow along. So in my captions, I've got the ability to manage words, and this is hard-coded at the moment, words per group, but that will be updated. Like, that will be something that the user can update, and that's something that is updated in the actual mobile app. Words per group 14. I think we probably... How many words run across the page? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd say 8 words. And I guess the size is going to be dynamic anyway. So now it will automatically group captions by time spoken and by... I'm going to have a running sentence. This will group captions by time spoken and also by the number of words in a sentence. That works much better. There's still some bugs to work through, but that works a bit better, I think. I'd love to add some fade away, like with animations. But I think that's easier to follow and easier to read now, because you're reading it like you would read a book. And the problem with the speech to text is it likes to go back and rewrite what has previously been said, so everything jumps around the page. So this way it archives it when it drops off the latest line, so it's not going back to change the line that was previously said, it's only changing the current line. I'm purposely talking long so I can have a much bigger amount of buffer in there. But I'm happy with that. That's working. That's a lot easier to read. What do you think? And then it's got a time away. So it can't, if I haven't spoken for a while, it can't just stay on the screen. It needs to disappear. And then does all the text in the history disappear or what? Christopher, looks great. Well, that's very promising. So yeah, the next step is getting this to time out. I might just quickly run to the toilet. I'll be back. I'm back. One thing I have noticed about this text-to-speech in Mac OS is that even when you mute the microphone, so I mute the microphone at the OS level, it still picks up anything that's being said. So you watch, I'll mute the microphone. And that's not ideal. Oh no, it's gone back. But that's not ideal when you want to mute the microphone on stream and you don't want subtitles to show what's being said while the microphone's muted. So I've got to work out a way of being able to detect that somehow. In SwiftUI on macOS, how to detect when microphone is muted. Currently, it still does text speech to text even when mic is muted. Based on the code you provided, it seems you're using AV Audio Engine. Here's an approach you could try. Add a method to monitor the audio levels. If the audio level stays below a certain threshold for a period of time, consider the microphone is muted. Okay, interesting. So we want to add the check audio levels, starts silence detection. Let's see if this works. That didn't work. All it's doing is just setting a timer. Check audio levels, start silence detection. Check audio levels. So in the buffer, it's checking the audio levels. Below threshold. So I'm not muted at the moment. And it stays below threshold for while there's no audio. If I mute it, what if I turn the volume down? That's weird. That's a weird perk of Mac OS, and quite a bit of a vulnerability, I guess. So you could actually think your microphone is turned off and still have someone listening into what you're saying. I didn't know that. So the text-to-speech, even if your microphone is muted, even if your microphone is turned down, still continues to detect audio. And I guess that's because it should overwrite the audio functionality on the MacBook, because the general use case of speech to text is not recording your voice. Interesting. I'm learning. But I think that's a problem for a bit later. I don't think that's a problem for just now. If it was an easy fix, I could fix it. But right now, that looks like a harder thing to tackle. Where did my audio go? There it is. Sometimes it doesn't pick up a lot of words. And I guess if... might change that threshold. So it's currently set to 0.2 seconds between talking, which works well for longer content. Let's see what happens if I set that to 1 second. Okay, so now it's set to 1 second. 1 second. So if there's 1 second delay, it will start a new sentence, but if it's not, then it doesn't. And I think with the backlog of text, that works a bit better. I like it. Let's see if I can add with animation in there again. So I'm hoping that eases in nicely. And it kind of does. Does a weird thing where it resizes the frame, but it looks a lot nicer. Is it fading nicely when I start a new sentence? Is what I'm wondering. Because I'd like it to fade nicely. At the moment it just fades up. Instead of this previous subtitle is going to run quite long after a while. Wonder if this works. I've removed the animation when it goes to the next one, but the current word fades in nicely. Maybe that's enough. Then I guess after a second of no talking, it will automatically just go to the next line. What I want to do is set the a confidence level a bit higher. I wonder if I use raw transcription. Can I? calculate confidence. Transcription.segments. If segments is empty, return confidence level of 0. If total confidence equals segments reduce plus confidence, total confidence divided by segments count. How would that provide a confidence calculation? I guess it's trying to get more words. Confident recognition below confidence threshold 0.0. Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, so it's getting enough of the buffer to work it out, which doesn't really work that well with live text, does it? So yeah, of course it's going to be confident because it's not running while it's going. And the confidence level always comes back as 0. Recognize text, confidence 0.83. No. Is there a better way that is built into if result is final. If result is final. What does that do? Will this work? Recognize text, will this work? But it's not final. What defines it as final? Patrick asked, does everybody use AI to code? Is it impossible to code without AI? AI is like I find it as a nice tool, so it doesn't take me away from doing the code itself, but if I get stuck, instead of going to Google, I go straight to Claude or ChatGPT. What about you, Patrick? Are you using AI to code? So just on medium. When you run into a problem, Patrick, what do you use? Are you still jumping onto Google? I mean, I've had to jump onto Google now, find out how this is final works, and I think this is once it's all been processed, like the entire path of the audio. But because I'm running with a live stream of audio, it's clearly not ever going to be final. So I want to have a confidence level so we're not jumping around too much. I don't mind a short delay. But we need the text to be a bit more, it needs to be a bit more confident in what the text is. Christopher says, I find it helps to bounce ideas off another person while coding, but when you're a solo dev, ChatGPT can help with that. I'm going to turn this with animation off. Not there yet. Patrick says he's more leaned into getting help from real people. Do you work in an environment like a co-working environment or an office? I've turned off the fade in. Just for now anyway. And it should only update text in the last group. This is makes me nervous, hard, like coding it like this, because that will crash. But just seeing if it works. And then when a new line is added, it will not. Yeah, see, we crashed. Two values, grouped subtitles, so I've already got that defined, so we can just use that. Patrick goes straight to forums and from friends. Straight to forums. There you go. And to friends. Maybe these issues with the text is something that will... There we are, out of bounds. Maybe the issue with the text not updating correctly is something that I'll update with an LLM. Wonder what the latency will be like. and even the CPU impact. Because if you're running a stream, like ideally if you're running a stream, you're doing something CPU intensive, you don't want the subtitles thing to be going crazy. Patrick goes straight to farms. Yeah. It needs some work, that voice detection. I've set it to Australian and it still doesn't work all that well. But we're not getting an index out of bound anymore. And ideally when a line is archived, the text should not go back and recorrect it. So that might fix some of it. And then I want it to time out, so if I haven't spoken for a bit, it should just disappear off the page. Ah, my continuity camera has 20% battery left because I've stolen the charging cable. So I've just got my old iPhone up here recording the keyboard. Those captions are working better. Happy with that. But I mean, it should disappear after a while. Oh. Not happy with that. That went a bit weird. Yeah. I guess having the archive does help with when weird things happen. But I need to fix it so there's less weird things happening. Right now, I'm going to make it so it times out. I've already got a timer. That timer was previously being used to render subtitles at 10 frames per second, like it was drawing them. Now I'm just using simple text in SwiftUI. SwiftUI. No. You think the speech to text in Apple's ecosystem would know what SwiftUI is? There we go, it does. I'm going to lower that to 6 words maybe. 6 words would hopefully stop it from wrapping around, but also giving a nice log of what's being said. Yeah, that's working a bit better, I think, but that's going to be a customizable feature anyway. Now I want it to time out. Update timer. Last spoken. What should I call it? Last subtitle. Updated interval. And anytime we add words, anytime that the last word is changed, we do the last subtitle updated interval to 0. And we're still running with that one. Update interval time. Update time interval. If last subtitle updated interval greater than equal to, we're doing 10 frames per second, 10, that will do 1 second. Previous code for rendering frames. I've still got the previous code in there for rendering frames because I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to abandon that just yet. Because I think if a user does want to use more CPU and have more dynamic functionality, that is something that can be activated. So I'm not entirely convinced I'm going to get rid of that code just yet. So I'm just, there's like almost 2 lines of code running. Teha, hello. What are you working on? How are you going? So we have the archive current subtitle group, and now we also want to reset that timer, otherwise it's just going to run right off the page, isn't it? Ruben, let's go. Loving this. I'm just testing it live on stream while I'm building it. It's actually good quality assurance and testing it as it's going. Right now it should archive my text. But it's not archiving my current subtitle, is it? Working on Taha Tuna is working on an image generator that uses Sketch as a base for generation. I also updated my app after your recommendations yesterday, so thanks once again. Which app was that one? Was Colourioid Photo Editor, that's right, I remember that one. Working on an image generator that uses sketches as a base for generation. So is that part of, oh, so that's a different app. You're working on a new app and then also updating the existing app based on those recommendations from yesterday. That's awesome. I guess what I have to do in this instance is add an empty subtitle. So we add an empty subtitle. And then after 1 second it should archive, but why is it not archiving? Unless that timer's not even running, which is probably what's happening. No, timer is running. It is being updated. Last subtitle updated interval. Yeah, so I've really not done that properly. Yeah, so all I have to do is just add that one. I don't know why I've got update timer interval. Let's see how that goes. Is that going to work? Okay, it did archive it. But archives are nothing. Not sure I like the behavior of it. Words, word, timestamp, text, empty text, or just a space. Let's see. It's not the most ideal way of targeting that, of doing that, but let's just see what happens. So that has the impact I'm looking for, where it fades off the screen if not enough time has lapsed. But is that a good way of doing it? It looks clunky. What other way can it be done? because it does need to clear off automatically. Maybe it's just a matter of having everything just reset. And then that way, it just disappears. So you have a running log when a sentence goes too long, but it disappears after a short time. And that short time, maybe 3 seconds. So I wonder if that is the appropriate amount of time for it to time out. I think that works better. And then that way it has a log. If you say too many things, you can still read it as it's going. But the text always has to be, the text you're reading always has to be in the right direction. If I start again, it shouldn't move down a line. So it should have 3 lines, but it's doing that thing where it's empty anyway, where it needs to be empty. So we need to have words. If I have a speech bubble, I don't want it to have an empty bit at the top. Word timestamp text. We'll just do a space just for a placeholder. So the text always starts at the bottom, and then it will make its way up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. I'm not quite convinced that 6 words is the right amount. 6. Let's try 8 words. So it sets it at the bottom of the text. When there's a delay of a few seconds, it starts a new line. It automatically moves up and it looks a bit nicer now. And if I stop talking for a whole 3 seconds, it will clear the log. Balked. Hello. Drink coffee and take off the hat. Only problem with that, so I do it for your pleasure. So you don't see my big bald head shining nicely with these key lights. Alright, back to it. So it's kind of working the way that I want it to work. I wonder if... Music stopped.
Is it about control? Losing the grip, you get old.
See that? How much experience do I have with Swift? I've been using Swift now for just over a year. I started in April last year. In years, 1.6, 1.5. So we've got a timer. We're updating the timer. Now, what I would like to do is perhaps fade this off nicely. because I think that would work nicely. Yeah, so fading that off works nicely. And maybe even fading in, but only when it's creating the subtitle group. No subtitles. Just so I'm going to see if this works. Osamadaze, I am building a live auto captions app. So what I'm saying automatically gets transcribed from speech to audio, and I want to overlay this into OBS. At the moment, I'm trying to make it so when there's a first word appearing, first grouped subtitle, that it will automatically fade in. So you can see at the moment when I stop talking, it will fade out nicely. But I want it so it fades in nicely. Before Swift, what was I using to build apps? Taha, I was just building in JavaScript and HTML. And I was using a platform called Cordova. Look at that, Swift UI text-to-speech knows Cordova. And that allowed me to create hybrid apps using my existing skill set as a web developer. Okay, it's gone weird. Does this ever get triggered? It gets triggered now. So it should fade in. Ah, no, what's happening? I should be doing it here. There. Hopefully that fades in now. Let's see if that fades in. Yeah. Still needs a bit of work on the detection of speech. But now I get that nice fade in when it first starts talking. Because fading in each word kind of works. But then when words are updated, it doesn't work. So I guess what I could do, only update words that are added and not the archive of words. See that? Fresh graduate from college, could not find a job, so I'm thinking about making apps or basic games. Does this fade in? That fades in nicely. Is the text fading in? I'm not quite sure that I can see a fade in effect with the text. Because I guess we're playing with timestamps here. So that's not going to work, is it? It'd be nice to get that to work so that the text itself, the last word, fades in. See that? I understand where you're coming from with trying to find work. That's a tough situation to be in. Making apps or games, like it took me 2 years to generate any decent income from it that could actually support myself or my family. But one of the strategies that I used early on was to build an app and get it to like $300, $500 per month and then sell it. So if you have an app, you make $300 a month. Over 12 months, you make $3,600. You can't do a lot with $300 a month to support yourself, but market value for an app is 2 to 3 times annual revenue. So you say 2.5. So 300 times 12 times 2.5. So you could sell it for $9,000. So I would build an app, and when I get it to $300 to $500, I'd sell it. And so every few months I'd get a cash injection that helped to extend the runway. And that was a good way of subsidizing the cost of running, the cost of living with the ability to build apps. Games I found harder. Like I built a game, but you have to market it. Whereas an app, if you're able to focus on an app that people are looking for in the App Store, like you can just get people downloading it and subscribing. Michael, why not just keep all apps and after 3 months you're making a profit? Don't understand what the point of that is. That's what I'm doing now. So I've reached a stage now where the residual income from the apps generates enough to live. But if I've got an app that's making $300 this month, I can't pay the bills, I can't pay the rent, but I can sell the app and I can have a cash injection to sort of get me to that next step. And then I would, in that time, build another app and sell that one off. So after 3 months of making a profit, well, it's actually after 3 years. So the value that you sell it for is 12 months times the multiple. So you would have to keep the app for 3 years to generate the same amount of money. But if you sell it now, you cash out 3 years of revenue upfront. And that works for consumer apps. If you're going to spend hours and years building an app, it doesn't work. But if you make something quick, easy, that only takes a couple of weeks to build, then being able to cash out 3 years works to extend that runway. Michael says, because you don't have the server infrastructure. With an app, you can build it so you don't have the server infrastructure. Michael, so you basically needed an investor. I haven't been down that path. Tawanda, hello from Johannesburg, South Africa. Hello, what time is it in South Africa? See that, in my country, minimum wage is like $500. So if I can make 3 apps which generates $300 each, that's enough. I think that's possible. And I'm in a lucky position that I get to leverage the currency conversion of US. So Australian dollar is like 1.5 of US dollar. So for every dollar that comes in from the US, I'm generating a bit more than what, like the quality of living, or the, what's the word I'm looking for? Buying power. If I earn Australian dollars, so if I sold my time and did development work, which I've done in the past, and I did it in Australian dollars, my buying power is a lot less than generating revenue from US dollars, bringing it into Australia. So I hear what you're saying in terms of the currency conversion. And $500 is actually, the $300 to $500 mark is quite achievable making consumer apps from my experience. I've got some streams that I do that shows you how to do the right keyword research, pick an idea and launch it. But it does take some time to generate that sort of revenue. Like some of my apps might take 6 to 12 months to actually start generating any revenue. So you still have to find a way to have income while you're waiting for your apps to generate revenue, if they're going to generate revenue at all. 3:23 a.m. in Johannesburg, 4:23 a.m. in Turkey. What are you people still doing up? Michael, thanks for the info. Also, it's hilarious to me. You look like a typical New Yorker, because I'm from New York, but you don't act like a New Yorker. How does a New Yorker act? I guess the Australian accent might give that away, that I'm not a New Yorker, but I guess it's my choice of hat. New York hat. Night persons are the best. I tend to agree with you, see that, but the issue that I have, a family full of kids, so the days where I could code all night are long gone, but night coding was the best coding, I have to agree. And sometimes I still get some night coding in when everyone's asleep. New Yorkers are too abrasive. I'm too nice. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. I've heard that about New York, but I've never been over there. I want to change this music.
Balancing on a weary line.
(9:26 p.m. in Toronto. The time difference, yeah, 9:26 p.m. in Toronto. That's not too bad. That's not 3 a.m., is it? I think those captions are working nicely. I need some work detecting audio a bit better, but I like the way that it's now a bit smoother on the screen. Make it green again. And I might add some padding in there. Probably don't need padding just for this moment, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to actually overlay it onto the way that it should be. Test captions. We want it to be, no. So I want to add capture the screen, test captions. Application on the other screen, and I want to capture live captions. Filter, add filter, color key. Custom color. So what we got now? Oh no, so it adds an annoying green tint to everything. When I do a transparent word. Okay. So I'm going to add that there. Move that away again. And then we'll see how that works. So it kind of works, but does have that annoying green background of the semi-transparent words. So OBS doesn't like semi-transparency, it turns out. It doesn't filter it the same way. Christopher, I'll be working until 3 AM most likely. That's a night coder if I've ever seen one. See that? I see at Metro people plays basic games like jumping a character or memory games. I want to make a flat quiz app. That's running off the screen. My issue with apps, building apps, is hard to find people that want to use it. You have to hook into a keyword that people are looking for unless you do some marketing. So from my own experience, like building apps that people are actually looking for, like a currency converter or intermittent fasting. This is annoying me how it's running off the screen like that. I think that's because I've got 8 words again. 6 words not enough when you're talking, but it kind of is. Let's see if that works. I think it's not running off the screen. I've just cropped it. So because what I'm doing is cropping it. So when I talk and I run off screen, if I do run off screen, I guess it's trying to... Oh, I've done 6 characters again. Back to 8 characters. Back to 8 characters. Let's see if that works. Yeah, so promoting a game is harder than doing a app, I've found. Did you write your own software to generate the captions from speech? This is using just speech to text built into Swift UI. And then I'm just trying to present it in a way that works well. Originally, I was hooking in quite closely to the best auto captions app that I've built, which does a lot of animation stuff with the text, but it had a lot of overhead with the CPU and started to question whether it was even worth having that. I think people would rather have a lightweight solution that doesn't take up a lot of the CPU. That's a nightmare to look at, I'm sorry. I'm actually just testing it. Taha Tuna, how do you make your AI app secure? What's your go-to back-end solution? I have made a OpenAI proxy in PHP. So, oh, you can't see text when it's on a white screen, of course, because I don't have any. Interesting. Well, Of course it is. So I've made my own OpenAI proxy in PHP, and I use PHP, and it's just a simple, very, very simple PHP file that acts as a relay. So you send the text in, and it'll send it off to ChatGPT with your prompt, and then return it to the user. And then you can add things like IP limiting, rate limiting, things like that. Just protects the API key. Elias, I've spent the last 2 years as an React Native developer working for companies. Every day I consider what possible app I could build, and I can't think of any ideas. I think I was born to be an employee and not create apps. I think that's the biggest question that I'm asked, like how to come up with ideas. And sometimes it's just about thinking about what you're using during the day. See, it's run off the page again. Yeah. So I think coming up with ideas is more about finding an idea that's going to, like, working on something that you're passionate about, something that you like, or something in your life that pops up that you think could work. And then I do some keyword research to make sure people are looking for those keywords. And that's my validation to create a simple product. See that? Can you talk about security? What would you like to talk about with security? Michael, Elias, I feel like that's a defeatist attitude. You just got to stick with it. I don't know. I think it's kind of a realistic, and obviously if you jumped onto the stream and you're looking at building apps and you're an app developer, it's just a skill set thing. And it's not necessarily, I don't know if it's kind of like, I guess it could be interpreted as a defeatist headspace, but it's kind of like, I guess what I'm hearing is I can build, but I don't know what to build. And that's like a common question. Oh, that just pierced my eardrum. What did I do? I'm sorry. You don't need to build something like Amazon or Twitter. Just start with something niche, and maybe you can start seeing bigger picture. I think that's spot on, Michael. So I've started my journey from a few years ago, just building small little apps and building momentum from there. And then like this captions app, I'm building because I want to, well, because I'm streaming now, and I found a issue, which was people couldn't understand what I was saying, so I wanted to just build a solution. So the more you build, the more ideas you come up with, the more ideas you come up with, the more directions you go. And then when you open those floodgates, all of a sudden, everyone complains about having too many ideas and getting too distracted. Michael, do I make my apps cost money, or do I use ads? I've used ads in the past, but you need a lot of downloads and a lot of people, active users, to make it worthwhile. I guess if you've got a really popular app, it works well. But when it comes to, like, you get thousands of downloads a month, you're not going to generate much in terms of revenue from ads. What's worked well for me is subscriptions. See that? How do you sell apps? Can you explain it? There's websites like Flippa, FLIPPA.com. And what's the other one? Acquire.com. And you can list your app on there. Generally, people want a few months of revenue to see what it's worth. It got really loud when it switched over to GitHub. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to pause everything and just see why. I don't know why. A gooning app. I don't know what that is. Ever had an app bring in more revenue from lifetime memberships as opposed to subscriptions? No. I think subscriptions are good on apps. People are, especially in the Apple ecosystem, people are really conditioned to accept a subscription over a one-time payment. I think people would rather pay like a trickle than a big upfront cost, but I haven't really tested that. Did you get any online course for making better and friendly UI? Can you recommend any Udemy courses? It's just one of those trial and error things. My design skills are trash. What I like about Swift UI is it's got a lot of the design elements already built in. If you keep to just the standard Swift UI views, like it kind of looks nice anyway. You don't have to add all these extra design flary elements to it. Where the design and flair really stands out is on the app icon and the screenshots. My daughter had an accident and she's still recovering. There's a bit of a journey. It's going to be a few more weeks yet. But she got a severe concussion and a cracked skull. So it's a long recovery journey for her, but it could have been a lot worse. So we're really happy that it's just, and I say just, it's still a horrible thing, but it's a bone that'll heal. Thanks for the advice. By the way, the caption helps me understand the stream more since I am a Spanish speaker. It is easier for me to read what you say than to listen to it. Good work. Yeah, it was based on feedback, that exact same feedback. I was on a stream and people were saying, I really, like English speaking people were saying, I really want to know what you're saying, but you've got an Australian accent and I can't get past it. And that's how it sort of spawned. So if you're saying that it's working in that manner, even just the preview at the bottom, then that's great. Hi Bippo, take it easy. Yeah, definitely. What's the next thing I'm going to tackle with this? So I've got the captions working nicely, fading in. I'm happy with how that's working. When it's on a white background, you can't see what's being said. So maybe we start working on the background. Thank you, Sedat. Okay, does this work? So that adds a background to it. And then when it goes to the next line, it's jumping around a bit. I guess that's to be expected. And then it sort of, it's a cool effect, but I don't think that's the intended way of doing it. Interesting, I guess. If I make it white, opacity 8, and then I set the background to black. Elias, do I plan to add captions, translation to the captions in the future? Language transcribing process is too long to see text in real time. I've had this recommendation, but I'm not quite sure how that would work. I guess it would only work if I'm targeting a specific, like if I'm not an English speaker and I wanted to do a stream that targeted English speakers, then that would work. If English wasn't my native language. So I'm not quite sure how translations would work. It is possible. I'm not trying to work out what the use case would be. See that? What do you use as a computer? Oh, I like that. It works a bit better, doesn't it? I'm using a MacBook M3 Pro Max. I don't know. Previously I was using the M1, and I would still be using the M1 if I had enough RAM in it, because the M1 is quite capable of doing everything that I need to do. But I was running into some roadblocks with the RAM. I'm going to pause the music because I'm going to switch to screen again. I don't want to blast everyone's eardrums. Back to code. And restart the music. And I'm going to chroma key as black. Does that work? Kinda. I think that works a bit better. Chroma keying black, but then that means that I can't add. That runs too far off the screen. Yeah, but then that means I can't add like a speech bubble with a black border, because black is now the chroma keyed element. Catch you later, Christopher. Catch you later, Christopher. Okay, so that works a little bit better. I have M1 Air 512, 8, and lately Xcode is so slow. So it's 8 gig of RAM. That's what I was running into the problem with. I was having the new version of Xcode was just really running slow on the M1 with 8 gig of RAM. I think it's a RAM issue. Otherwise, the machine works really well in everything else except for Xcode. But I use Xcode like every day. Mexico. No, Xcode. And preview pause a lot of times. One way that I was getting past a lot of those issues was to deploy, like to test straight on device. So he's using the CPU of the device. I'm happy with how this is coming out. Now I've got to get stuck into the next part of the code. I'm just trying to think what the next part would be. I'd like to have some sort of semi-transparency, so I wonder if there is a way to add like a transparent key. So I'm going to remove the chroma key. Like, oh, you can do a chroma key on here. Ah. Okay, so I'm going to set it back to green. Instead of using a color key, I'm going to use a chroma key. Chroma key. I wonder if this is working. There should be like a semi-transparent behind that. And then the next line should have semi-transparent behind that. Properties, no. Filters, chroma key. You can set the threshold. So if I set the threshold like that, it still adds the green to it. So the chroma key. So the chroma key works best if it's black. Filter. What other keys do they have? They've got chroma key, color key. I think the chroma key has select color and we'll make it black. Does that work? No. Where did it go? Hello? Is this working? Is this working? Is this working? No. So when you do black as the color key, nothing works. If I had to get a new MacBook, which one would you get? Excluding the fact that you'll probably release M4s soon. I just bought the M3 just a few months ago. Tax time in Australia is July 1st. So I wanted to get a new laptop before the end of tax time so I can have a tax deduction for last year. So I end up getting the M3 and I'm happy with it. Just beefed up, made sure I got the maximum amount of RAM possible. How much the M3 cost me? Receipt, Apple M3. M3 Apple. Processing your order. The M3 cost $4,799 Australian. $4,099 Australian is 3,200 US. And the mistake that I originally made was not getting enough RAM. Like, I thought that I could upgrade the RAM in the M1, but it turns out you can't. And already, like, I think that one was a few $1,000s, and that was already more than I ever spent on a laptop ever in my life. So I didn't want to inject more money into getting RAM in it when I could upgrade it later. But you can't upgrade it later. So if you're going to make the investment, you need to put that extra RAM in there. It hurts at the beginning, but like in a few years' time, it'll still withhold its age, hopefully. Hey, Elias. Any alternative to Astro to search for keywords? $100 in my country is too much. The other alternatives are places like App Figures, AppFigures, and they do have a free trial, but I think the pricing, like for keyword research, and I'm not switching over the screen because it blasted everyone's ears before. The plan for keyword optimization is $119 per month, and that lets you target, like, look up 500 keywords. So there are services out there that are alternative to Astro, but Astro is a once only cost of $100, whereas the other services are like $100 per month. Alexi, thank you for dropping in. Mr. Med, what do I think makes someone a full dev? Is it all about experience or just being able to work both front and back end? I think that's a definition of a full stack developer. Someone that has an overall a good developer experience with the ability to do front end and back end. Can I say the RAM and memory of my M3? About this Mac. 36 gigabyte of RAM, and I think I got a terabyte of disk space. I'll be back. I'm back. I think what I've got to do is focus on what happens when the sentence runs off the screen. Because at the moment it works very nicely when it's just 3 neat lines. But in some instances when I talk too long, it's going to, or use lots of big word. If I use lots of big words that flabbergast and flabbergast and flabbergast and flabbergast and flabbergast and flabbergast, it's going to run off the screen and it's going to make the thing go to 4 lines instead of 3 lines. So when it goes to 4 lines and I'm cropping it, I don't want that to happen. In my country, that computer is equal to 120k and minimum wage is 17k. So if I want to buy this computer, I need to work 7 months. Yeah. But if you generated revenue from your apps, you could re-inject it into the laptop, I guess. And that's what I've done. So I started off with an M1. In fact, I started off with a broken laptop, broken MacBook with no screen, and I plugged up an HDMI external screen, and someone sold it dirt cheap on Marketplace. So if you're looking for, I mean, you've got an M1, so it's doing its job. It's just running a bit slow. Is that a Signature Slim K239 Logitech keyboard? This is just the MX Keys keyboard. Constraints breed innovation. I think you're right. But also, I think constraints also make you want to motivate you as well. But yeah, if you can leverage, if you can build, if you live in a country where the US dollar coming in gives you greater buying power, you can really leverage that with apps. Like, I've never known anything in the past that you can build and create a residual income and live off it, like, without injecting, like, it's not like stocks and shares and property where you have to put a lot of money down. The money that we're talking down isn't actually the barrier to entry. I guess that's what I'm saying. The barrier to entry isn't as big as some other types of investments where you build an asset like a house or a traditional bricks and mortar store. And you can generate enough revenue to not have a boss. So I want these captions not to run off the screen, or at least if they do run off the screen, and also it's showing, so I need to hide it. At the moment it sort of shrinks down when it's no longer in use. So caption subtitle view, might call it. Should have made that a view. Subtitle view. I am switching between audio because it's possible that the audio jumps around because I'm switching between listening to the microphone and not. So if it hurts anyone's ears, let me know. Because in my headphones, I can definitely hear it jumping around. When I say bad UI, I am talking about that. The constraints. Taha Tuna. The good thing about living in countries like Eastern European ones is that an MRR of around 1,000 US would allow you to quit your job. By the way, how long are you planning to stream today? I haven't given that much thought in terms of how long. It's just and this is, I guess this is where constraints come in. My constraints are when the kids are home, I can't stream, get them jumping all over the place. So I'll be probably streaming until they come barging through the front door, which I don't know when it is. They're out at the moment. Some of them are at school and the others are with their mum. So when they get home, I'll need to wind it up. Sounds normal so far, thanks. I'm just really cautious now of blasting everyone's ears. Okay, so this subtitle is now showing in the view. I'm wondering if I can so what I want to do I'm going to go back to this chroma key. When you stream, are you not feeling productive? Are you feel unproductive? To a degree, but like sometimes if I want to do some heavy coding, something that I'm working on that needs my full attention, then I won't be able to sort of devote my attention to streaming and talking. But at the moment, what I'm doing is just some pretty light, easy stuff, and I'm testing it while I'm talking, so I'll be talking anyway. So this sort of code works well for just chatting and doing it like just a fun, relaxed coding session. But if I was to do, when I was doing the keyframing and all of the heavy lifting, that's something that I probably couldn't do while talking. When you code, you don't like to talk to anyone. I get that. Jordan's kid's just gone down to bed. Now it's time to work on his side project. That's the way. with this issue. Who do I watch when I try to learn Swift? There's a couple of good YouTubers. Let me just find them. Flow writes code. Flow writes code. I'll put him in there like that. And then and Sean Allen.
Adam?
Speaking of which,